Hi there, and welcome to the Future Makers podcast by MAND. This is where we talk to people from scientific and high-tech organizations with a purpose. I'm Angina Herman, and Ave Idavine is hiding under the hood to make sure everything runs. Say hi to everyone, Ave.
Hello, everyone.
Today we get to speak with Maruška Strah. Maruška is the executive manager of Space Sustainability Rating, an organization that wants to encourage space actors to design and implement sustainable space missions and operations. Welcome, Maruška.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you here. So tell us, Maruška, why does Space Sustainability Rating exist?
This is a wonderful question and a little bit more difficult to answer than I imagined at first.
Ooh.
But let me say this. The space sustainability rating exists because we need a mechanism as a rating that shows how sustainable space missions actually are. Something that shows and proves how much effort the industry and all space actors and stakeholders are actually putting into ensuring that the space environment remains safe and that also our life on Earth remains safe. Space sustainability rating has quite a lot of history. It's been very carefully developed. It started with the World Economic Forum, MIT, the European Space Agency, Bryce, and UT at Austin. And this was a process of years of development before EPFL was selected to host the rating. And then in December 2022, the Space Sustainability Rating Association was born and became an independent body, an independent organization based in Lausanne, Switzerland, where we are now performing these independent, neutral, transparent ratings.
So what exactly are you rating? I mean, when I hear ratings, I think of the energy ratings for different appliances for your fridges, or the Nutri-Score that you have for foods from A to D, depending on how healthy they are. So is that something similar for space sustainability then?
Precisely. I mean, and this is exactly it, right? Like when we're talking about, for example, space traffic management, my absolute favorite topic, it's the same as rules of the road. So when we are talking about space, this is not something that's really, really far away and we don't know anything about it or what's happening or what's going to happen. It is really something that is quite close to us, right? So when we need a rating of how healthy something is or how energy efficient something is, my favorite example is, which is quite similar to what we're doing, is the rating of the shipments of cargo on the sea. This is a great example, and what we are rating are basically missions and what's happening outside of Earth. So we don't rate anything that is further than near Earth orbits, so LEO, MEO, and GEO. But we, for example, we look at how long you're planning to keep your satellite in orbit. What is your deorbiting plan? What is your disposal planning? Also, we are trying to ensure that there is no further debris, that that there is collision avoidance. We look into how sustainable your mission is. In general, there's a lot of tiny details that our operations and technical officers are looking at, because my point of view is more on a policy and governance side. So there is a lot of nuances on how missions are built. And the greatest things about the space sustainability rating is that it can be performed at any stage of the mission. So you don't have to be launched already. You can still be planning, because the rating comes with a set of recommendations as well, which means that you get the first computation of all these different factors and standards that are, we didn't invent anything. These are standards that are existing, that are binding. Some are voluntary, the guidelines on how missions should be built, how satellites should be disposed, how you control all this. And we make a checklist of things that we ask for and then receive from operators and from those who actually want us to perform the reading. So that being said, after all this is done, there's still a lot of work because we have to communicate this properly as well, right? Because sustainability is a big business. There are billions invested in sustainability of outer space by the industry, and the reason one of the reasons why it matters so much is that it ensures, again, safety and security, but also the livelihood of companies. You ensure that your mission is going to survive, that you will avoid collisions, that you will avoid potential destruction, that how you're built is in fact sustainable, and this first set of computations with the recommendations actually tells you what you could do to improve the rating, and with improvement of the rating actually make your mission safer and more secure. I say this a lot, right? But at the risk of repeating myself, safety and security is sustainability. You cannot be sustainable if you're not secure, and you cannot be secure if you're not sustainable. So there is this whole cycle. We are talking about circular economy quite a lot, and in my personal view, I think this is also part of it. That we have to ensure that what we're doing in space is in fact done in a way that allows space to be reused, that we don't congest it, that we're not threatening the orbits and also life on Earth. This is everything we do in space is to improve the life on Earth. And this is, again, something I say quite often, and I will continue saying. It's not like space is somewhere out there, and it's not something that an everyday person gets no contact with, or does not get affected by it, or not touched by it. Everything that we do every day is somehow affected by what someone else has done in outer space, and this is why we do what we do, and we are really committed to sometimes trying, sometimes succeeding in making space more sustainable.
So you mentioned that everything we do in space is to make life better on Earth. So it's a very, I don't know, human centric. Maybe we're going very far. I just remember last time we had a podcast, just me and Ave. We talked about the human race spreading into space like a locust swarm or something. So how much do you think about that? Like, what do we do to other planets, for example? Is that part of the space sustainability rating, or is that already too abstract?
This is not part of the rating, because in the rating we're really just looking at missions and the operations. Now, as someone who loves space and everything space related, and mostly space policy and governance, I do think about this quite a lot. And I'm, of course, not the only one. And, I also have insomnia, so sometimes I cannot sleep. And then I start reading the different theories of why we haven't met the aliens yet. And some are nice, some are not that nice. Do I believe in in something out there? Well, I think it would be a pity if we were alone. It's a vast universe out there, and we are really tiny and sometimes not the most well behaved. So perhaps there is room for general improvement for us as well in how we do things in our everyday lives. But I do as a human, of course, take the human centric point of view. There has been a paper written by a dear colleague about what would happen if we encountered something that is not, you know, a different species or something. And yes, we are going very far from the initial subject, but it is fascinating. It is fascinating because we are evidently human centric, and we have to be, because if we are, then we can actually improve something about ourselves, right? Being human centric in the way I talk about it doesn't mean that we are the best and the greatest and we have to destroy everything else. It means that we are humans and we need to strive to make everybody's life better, and if not better, at least not worse, right? So this our rating, the activities that other stakeholders are doing, it's all really to make life better. And this is what matters at the end of the day, right? Because no matter how you look at space as a vast um, resource, we are on Earth, right? So we have to ensure that our planet is safe and secure and that we are doing well. There is a number of experiments, a number of scientific missions. There's so much going on that is benefiting us in medicine, in communications, in transport, agriculture, water resources, weather monitoring. It's incredible. There's no way that one person could even understand all of it because there's so much that space affects that before we understand what's happening here, we cannot, in my view at least, not really focus on anything else because there's still so much to know.
Yeah, I think you've already answered quite well what I have roaming through in my mind. Is like the word sustainability is such a catch-all phrase. It feels sometimes like I don't really even know what sustainability means. It has so many different aspects, and many of them contradictory even. But also, what you mentioned earlier is that you are basing this. So it's not something that you guys came up together. You booked a conference room in EPFL and then you decided this is how we're going to do rating, but you're actually rather putting together agreements and recommendations that were already developed long ago. Is that correct, how I understood it?
That is exactly correct. There is a number of international standards, agreements, and guidelines that are already in place. And sometimes these are difficult to navigate. Now, if you're a small, for example, small new startup, it's very difficult to go over every single guideline and make a checklist of what you're actually doing. So we know that a lot of companies wanted to have a mechanism that would allow them to have compliance checks, for example, right? So rating is also that process. It tells you how compliant you are with ISO standards, how compliant you are with the Outer Space Treaty, with voluntary guidelines such as the long-term sustainability guidelines, and others, of course. Right now, this is a and this is where it gets tricky, right? Because these guidelines and these standards are not something that was written 50 years ago and will remain the same for 100 years, but it's something that is alive and has to be updated, has to be amended, and has to be rechecked because the space industry is developing very fast. Right? Um, and we are paying great attention on the changes in legislations and updates in existing documents and looking at how those changes affect the rating as well. So we are in very close contact with stakeholders, monitoring this, and we also believe that the rating is going to be having improvements. We are not trying to make it more difficult, absolutely not. We don't want to make it more complicated, but we are trying to streamline it, right? So even with the rating, our goal is that it's not stagnant, but it keeps developing.
So who are actually the ones that you are rating? So, I mean, the way I've understood how the space industry or how everything there. There's a lot of governmental countries have their own operations, and we have the international intergovernmental collaborations, and then we have an increasing amount of private companies, and then all of these somehow also work together. So what is, are you targeting some sector in particular, or pretty much anybody who has anything to do with space?
We are targeting the space sector, period. Right? So companies and space actors that are having operations in space. Ideally, governments and space agencies would ask their industry to prove that they are sustainable. And once they are asked, we can rate them. And this would be the ideal outcome, not only for us, but well, not for us, but for the everybody who wants to do space missions, because it would allow us to actually prove that they are compliant with the regulation in each country, right? Um, so even because space is not wild west, right? It's a very highly regulated area that has rules of behavior, and we comply with it. Right? This sensational reporting of you do whatever you want is not, in fact, true in my view, right? The national authorities have their processes. They vet, they check. You have to comply. So the rating and mechanism like a rating is also beneficial for them because it takes less time to go over the whole process you have to maintain, but you can check the rating as the first step of what was already done, right? So to answer who are we rating, those who want the rating, basically,
Hmm.
right? There is no particular um, sector within the space sector that is for which the rating is relevant and for others not. But we are looking into operators. It's, if the manufacturer is going to ask their clients to get the rating, we will still rate the the user, the operator, right? So this is our basically goal customer. Um, with that being said, I do believe that there is a lot of room for users to also ask for ratings to be performed. For example, when you are bidding on a project or you want to um, seek investors or you want to connect with other operators, a rating could really showcase what you're doing and how you're doing it, right? How sustainable you are. One of the great benefits of the rating that I keep bringing up is that it allows someone, in that case, a company, to showcase their actions and their commitments without disclosing information that is, proprietary information that
Hmm.
you would not just publish in a newspaper because you spend years of developing, but you still have to prove that you've done your work, you've done your homework, you've done your research, and you want to show what you've done, right? So this is rating as a whole is not just a computation and then we all go home. It has an effect. It has a great significant effect. On one hand, it informs the operators, and on the other hand, it also allows them to inform their investors, their stakeholders, the general public, everybody who is affected by space missions, which is in fact everybody. So we need some mechanism in place that allows us to have missions that are not harming the environment and life on Earth.
Do you have like a nice and naughty list of space actors?
No, but I'm gonna start it after this podcast,
Very good.
Excellent.
and I will. Yeah, I'm starting it after this podcast, and I will call myself Maruška Klaus. But
Very good.
it's a certainly an interesting idea. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, I mean, the benefits sound clear to me in theory. How has it actually been received? So the association hasn't been around for that many years. So what's the traction been so far? Are the space actors actually seeing the benefits and taking advantage of them?
So let me just go back to the nice and naughty list.
Okay.
One thing that is really important about the rating, and I'm really happy that you brought this up, because it's really important to us, is that we are not here to punish, right? We are not here to discredit. For us, the most important is that we celebrate those who actually put commitment in sustainability. So if you have a large constellation, for example, you're not going to get a bad rating just because you have a lot of satellites. Right? This is one example. If you show commitment to sustainability, even if it's minor commitment, this is going to be reflected in the score you get. Right? So we are not here to make the news and say, "Oh, Maruška has a nice and naughty list, and these are the companies that are doing bad things." It's rather a celebration of the nice list, of those who put effort into things. And this is and I think we don't see enough of that, of celebration, of commitment to sustainability. Like I said before, this is $1 billion business because companies really invest in this. It is in everybody's interest that we are
Yeah.
sustainable. It's not like you can do something and you don't care, because if someone else is not sustainable, that threatens your mission as well. So it's really important that we show this commitment. And I do see a lot of interest in the rating. I see that the rating has great potential as well for growth. I think that everybody is now in the period of a learning situation of what it is, what it does, what benefits are there. But based on the conversations we had with the rated entities so far, is that this rating helped them convince investors to really put money into their mission. This is I do see this as one of the crucial reasons for performance of the rating. We saw a company that needed to prove to an agency that they are sustainable, and they were asked to show sustainability rating of their mission. So there are tangible benefits to this. After we have, I think that after we're gonna be existing for a couple of years and have more customers, the companies will be also in a position where they can evaluate all the benefits of the rating. Because right now, I think that at this point, um, we certainly can talk about investment. We can talk about proving to agencies and program managers that you're sustainable. But I suspect that there's going to be a discovery of benefits of having such a rating that we are not even considering yet. And this is going to be an interesting development, right? Um, because it's going to allow us to reevaluate how we do things on our end, and it's also going to allow the industry, or is going to encourage the industry to get the ratings performed and also showcase their commitment even more.
So do you think this works best on a voluntary basis, or would you like to see SSR or a similar rating become compulsory someday?
As this is another difficult question because I don't believe in regulation for the sake of regulation. I think that we have mechanisms in place. I believe that when the three of us met, actually, I was talking about governance and how we hear quite a lot how everything is slow and it's not working and there's no governance. Of course, there is, right? Just because you don't like something, it doesn't mean it stopped existing. Or just because you disagree with something, it doesn't mean it's not there. We have this in place, and the governance process, yes, sometimes it's not you know progressing with the speed of light, no pun intended, but we have mechanisms in place. I believe that most of the space actors are compliant already with long-term sustainability guidelines. And those who are not because they don't want to be. I refuse to believe that anyone wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, today I'm not going to be sustainable." I cannot imagine a world like this. I also don't know if I want to live in a world like this. But I do see the existing mechanisms that are already compulsory and you have to abide by in existence as part of the rating. So if this is a voluntary mechanism, I see it as something that is going to have a great effect because it's going to allow the stakeholders to decide they want to do it. And I do see this as something that if the industry, if the stakeholders decide for it, it is going to become the norm. And for something to become a norm, it doesn't have to be a law or regulation. And it can happen organically. And we've seen this, right, with ASAP ban, for example, right? And I for one, as Maruška, um, believe in organic, in norms that become this because we all recognize that they matter and they are important and something that is beneficial for everybody. I don't want to see another regula- regulatory mechanism that you have to do and then try to avoid rather than celebrate what you're already doing and showcasing that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking because from what I hear, it sounds like the SSR is not actually introducing new criteria. You're rather bringing together existing criteria that have a lot of regulatory power already. So it could rather be seen as a tool to navigate the regulations instead of additional layer of regulations. Is that how you would
Exactly.
describe it? Yeah.
Exactly. And this then has a softer but stronger effect because it's not forcing anybody to do anything, right? And we know that there is a need for an overview or checklist. I like checklists, right? A checklist of all the regulations, standards, guidelines, everything that you have to comply with, and rating provides that.
So I'm curious how you see, because I personally am interested in this whole development of the so-called new space or space 4.0, however it's called, the idea that there are new and often smaller companies, startups even joining the space economy. I From this conversation, it sounds to me like the space sustainability rating would be ideal for them because they have not necessarily enough manpower to just deal with all the regulation. It would be nice to get someone to help them figure out a shortcut. But how do you see this emergence of the new kind of space economy at SSR?
I believe that in space there is a space for everyone. There is so much that can be done still. there is I in my previous life as executive director of the World Space Week Association, last year we had so every year we had a theme for World Space Week, and last year it was space and entrepreneurship. And the space and entrepreneurship fits perfectly with what you just said, because it empowers the next generation to come up with innovative ideas on how they can use the existing information, existing data, and what is already happening in space in ways that has not been thought about before. Right? And we see a number of companies that are doing exactly that, that are looking at the information that is there, that is accessible, and are finding ways to inform and use it in ways that are beneficial for a number of sustainable development goals, or basically betterment of the human condition, or just um, making use of information that is available. Um, the way I see this as space sustainability rating, I do agree with you. This is the perfect customer, not just because they don't they might not have the resources to check every document and ensure that they are compliant, but because of safety and security. Because being compliant is not does not mean only that you have a checklist of documents. It means that you are performing activities in outer space that are safe for you and for everybody else who is also doing such activities. Right? It showcases that your mission can survive, is sustainable, and is your livelihood. Right? You are dependent on it. A smaller startup that doesn't have a backing of millions or billions, and doesn't know how their work is going to continue, needs to have proof that their mission is sustainable, because that is what's going to pay the bills at the end of the month. Everything that we do in space needs to have some form of understanding that it's gonna reflect back on Earth and our life here, right? And space is not just for astronauts. You need a number of professions. I cannot think of a profession that would be irrelevant for activities in space. I simply can't, because especially the smaller companies, these newer actors, are really innovative in ways that they're bringing people together. And I am convinced that between that and space sustainability rating, we can see a new wave of really amazing activities in space that are beneficial and of course sustainable, right? So that they can continue growing, that they can survive as well. Right? Space is not a kind environment. I cannot imagine going on a vacation in space, right? Um, so we do need to ensure that it is done in a way that is, also good and healthy for us. And this is what we're trying to achieve with the rating.
So I'm curious, like, okay, the SSR includes a lot of different aspects on sustainability and mitigating all kinds of risks, but what do you, as representative of SSR, or I don't know, as an individual, Maruška, what do you think are the biggest risks right now in space? What are we mostly trying to avoid? Are we talking about space debris? Are we talking about war in space? Or I don't know, global warming? Or what are the biggest problems now that we need to make sure to solve?
Oh wow. I Something that allows me to sleep at night is thinking about the great things, not about the threats. Because when I will start thinking about all the things that can go wrong, I will never stop, and then I'll just be awake, and I really would like to avoid that. Um, but I do believe that a great threat to us all and to the environment is is for sure space debris and creation of more. I do believe that we need a way to clean a little bit what we left behind, and ways and norms and efforts that are put in place to avoid creation of new debris just because are what I see as truly a great way forward. I mentioned a sad band before. I will mention it again. I do see this as an incredible step of so many countries, and I think that we should follow this as a role as a role model. I don't know what would be a better expression on how we're treating the space environment. I do believe that it's in everybody's interest that space remains safe, and because of that, and that allows me to sleep at night. I'm thinking and believing that everybody who does anything in space does it with the intention of keeping it safe.
That was my question as well, actually. I'm struggling to formulate it a little bit. But since you must work with so many different offices, agencies, bodies, space sectors, etc., and since we met at a conference, you obviously talk to many people in the field. Do you see that there's an alignment and goodwill in everything regarding space, or are there lobbyists, and are there people who try to make things more relaxed and easier to privatize, or how do you feel the general census is on this?
I'm an idealist, and I I do believe in the greater good. I do see actors committed to that as well. I believe in the governance. I believe in the current setup. I am convinced that what we are doing is broadly is is good. If there are individuals with their own interests, perhaps, but I am lucky enough to be surrounded by professionals who are committed to safe space.
So, what's your personal background and motive? How did you end up working in the space sector in general and SSR in particular?
So I was on a I'm coming from a very medical family, doctors, um, you know, ministries of health, so health policies, psychologists, chemists. It's always been a fascination to me and great interest to me as well. So I was on a very different career path as an international relations student. And then during my master's, I read one chapter on international space law. I fell in love, and the rest is history. I read that one chapter in international law book, and I knew that this is what I'm gonna be dedicating my life to.
Wow.
And after that, it was definitely love at first sight. But I do tend to do things like that. That I know when something is good for me. And after that, I was trying to figure out for quite some time on what is the best way to enter the sector, because I'm coming from a very small country. and I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist, and my generation was still under the impression that space is only for astronauts. So I started looking into different ways and finding my own path. And I was lucky enough to get an internship in the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, where in my application I was talking about space and global health because outer space applications and technologies have such a great effect on it. And what I learned during that 6 month internship is that yes, space and global health, great interest of mine. But before I started, I didn't even know what I didn't know. And I learned so much and such amazing things. And this is where my interest from global health shifts to space traffic management, because I see it as a priority of our generation and as something that really has to be put into perspective and also in the spotlight to ensure that everything that we do is going to be safe and secure. And with that, I was also during this internship, I was part of as an intern. I was drafting documents in for the long term sustainability working group, and this is where I learned about the importance of sustainability of outer space. And because of that, and this was such an enriching experience, I started researching. I came across sustainability rating as part of the World Economic Forum and their initiatives, and I kept track of the work and what's happening. So when it became an independent organization, it was the only job application I submitted because it was what I wanted to do. At the back of my mind, it was also, besides the natural career path, it was also um, something that I saw is gonna be a great learning opportunity for myself, because I do consider myself a lifelong learner and someone who would just like to learn and get new information and find ways how to process such information. So I saw it as a great lead and learn kind of opportunity where I could really utilize all the knowledge I already had and gain some more insight into how to make things more efficient, better, how to get more actors involved, and what are really the shortcomings we have at the moment, and how to improve those. And also, space is cool. So no, this is it, right? Like space is so cool. It's so amazing. We
It
look
is.
at it, and it's, you don't, until you really think about it, you don't realize. At least I didn't as a kid how much it affected my life. So that one chapter was like, okay, so this, hello, it's me, and here we
Yeah,
are.
this is where I got stuck in this explanation of yours, how you read a sentence in an international space law book and fell in love. I cannot imagine falling in love with space. So what was in that book, in that sentence, that made you fall in love with it?
How omnipresent it is, how much effect it has on everything and everyone, and how important it is that we recognize that. Because don't think, I don't believe that we understand enough how much effect space has on our everyday life.
Definitely not.
We are, I don't even know in which country you're based at the moment, and I am aware that this podcast would not be possible without space technologies, and not just the app, right?
Yeah.
It's not even just about the app, because we then focus on the app and like, oh yeah, this is awesome. No, but let's say we had to meet in person. How would I get to you? Right? It probably by train or by plane, and that uses space technologies as well. And how would I even find out about the podcast? Right? Through a
Yeah.
newspaper? How would that be delivered? How it would be, I don't know, is there like a folder in some news office? It has such an effect on everything. It's remarkable. Not so many things have so much effect, and I was fascinated by that.
Yeah. Yeah,
it
for me
was
it's
it was
been a like a pet peeve of mine to realize, because I think space is cool. I've been reading science fiction all my adulthood and hanging out with nerds, so I thought everybody thinks space is amazing, and then I realized that there's a disconnect. Like in the media, space is often considered like a nerdy thing, something for the engineers, something for the STEM people, and it's not relevant to us. And if you dream of building a space company, then you're delusional. And that's just, it blew my mind, because I only realized it recently that not everybody feels the way I do. So yes, I'm with you on that.
Let me say this. You don't have to be an engineer to be a nerd. I am a policy person. I fangirl over international documents and articles in international documents. I work in outer space. I don't like math. And I'm not the biggest fan of science fiction. I think there's so much beauty and fascination everywhere I look that I don't need something that is fiction to enjoy it or to be fascinated. Um, and for me, this chapter was really a realization of that. And to work in space, no matter who you are, right, or what you do or what your profession is, you do have to be a little bit nerdy, but not in the sense of, oh, now I'm going to read a million books and be the smartest person in the room and no one is going to be able to talk to me. Absolutely not. But in the sense of curiosity, something that makes you curious, something that makes you think, something that makes you believe in something bigger, something that allows you to use your mental and intellectual capacity to look beyond what you just see in front of you. Because you do have to have that in order to work in space, right? We think
Hmm.
about something that is bigger than us. It doesn't get nerdier than that. And and for me, that was also fascinating, right? Because I do love interesting people, curious people, people that say stuff that is really cool and makes me think, and that unfortunately does not happen as often as I would like, or it didn't until I started working in space, right? So thinking about all these tiny tiny things that make such a difference in life was the ultimate goal for me.
So I can't imagine anybody dreaming up futures and having visions about the future without considering space as part of it, because yeah, space is around us and it's going to be an important part of our lives also in the future. So for me it feels like anyone who doesn't think about space is short-sighted, but maybe that's too, I don't know, judgmental on my side.
Yeah, but it's also curiosity, right?
Hmm.
um, you need to be curious, a curious person, to consider anything that is not right in front of you. To think about the future is to be curious. To read fairy tales is to be curious. To read a book is to be curious. And and for me, space is also an opportunity, right? Which is a very important opportunity, because I do feel that we sometimes forget how difficult it is for individuals to think about the future and consider it and be curious and be hopeful because of their own circumstances. And I see this as a responsibility, right? That we utilize what we have to to create conditions that would allow everybody have this opportunity and have this chance of being curious and being hopeful. And I have a great friend who keeps saying that we would not go to the moon if we didn't see it. And I think it's such a brilliant description of what actually happened. And before she said it, I never even thought about it, right? But I think she is correct. And this is, this is something that space gives us. It gives us hope and opportunity to dream about something and be curious and be also courageous about going somewhere that is not known and forces us to think differently about things. Now, do I want to go to space? No, I do not. I would like to stay on Earth. I have my espresso here, pizza is here, and I will not be an advertisement for other services, but I do think that life here is very comfortable. I enjoy it quite a lot, and I think if I remember correctly, we already had this conversation about how I want to stay here because it's so nice. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't support others who would be willing and interested in going on a journey or a voyage of sorts and discover something new. And what I would like to believe the rating is going to do and encourage is that when we go on the voyage, we are going to be responsible. That becoming a multiplanetary species and discovering and researching is not for the sake of destroying or escaping, but it is really for the purpose of better and nicer and more and just beneficial. And to do that, we do have to be mindful of how we do things, and how we do things is very well recorded by a rating, by a mechanism that allows you to go back and reflect on your actions and then make appropriate adjustments if needed.
So, in view of time, Ave, do you have any final questions before I ask the actual final question here?
Let's do the final question.
I knew
Okay.
we're not gonna be finished before 12.
That's all good. That's all good. So, Maruška, 10 years from now, what will the world look like? Or maybe in your case, you want to extend it to include at least some of the orbits or maybe even the full solar system, up to you. But what's it going to be in 10 years?
You know what, Angina? Ask me in 6 months. And
Okay, I'm
then
interested.
ask me in 2 years, and then ask me in 2 years and a half. Because this is, even if I had even if I were a fortune teller, that's not something I could possibly answer because we don't know. I have no idea. I know it's going to be something amazing, but what it is going to be, no idea. What we are doing is developing so fast and so with the speed of life, pun intended, that I am curious myself. So I would be very very happy to resume this conversation in a couple of months and reflect back on how things were and how they are then, and then we can do this on a regular basis. And
That sounds good.
in 10 years, as we look back, we're gonna laugh and be like, yeah, see, as predicted, it was unknown.
Good.
That's good. Yeah, let's do that. I'm definitely doing that. But first, you'll need to give me some sort of something that we can laugh about 10 years from now.
um I have nothing. It very rarely happens that I have nothing, but 10 years from now, we'll be laughing about things that we don't even know about yet.
Fair. Yeah, yeah. And it'll be amazing. That much we
It will
got.
be amazing.
That sounds good.
This should be if I ever write an autobiography, I think this might be my title. It was amazing.
Ah,
I actually
that's
have
nice.
to. I will write this down
Good.
after this
I
podcast,
can
because
help you. I can be one of
I
your
have
test
a
readers.
see. I have an idea for 10 years, so
Very good.
might not be space related, but it's certainly going to talk
Good.
about it as well.
Yeah, so 10 years from now, Maruška will publish her first autobiography, first of many. All right, excellent. So, the guest today was Maruška Strah. Thank you, Maruška. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed this podcast.
So, dear listener, if you like hearing stories from people who make the world a better place through science and technology, you're in luck because there is more. So make sure to subscribe to the Future Makers podcast, for example, on Spotify. Until next time.